the Let's Talk Sports fans. Thanks for tuning in.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a special Sunday edition of One on One with AP here on the Let's Talk Sports Network. This is episode number 16. If you're listening to this on Spotify, I hope you are having a great night as well. Definitely check out the YouTube if you have not done so yet. As far as the week goes, as we normally do here on the show, as we preview the week, we didn't have a wrestling show this weekend. Sam had his birthday this past yesterday, so he had a party yesterday. Today's his actual birthday, so happy birthday to Mr. First Down if you're watching this. So that'll be back on Tuesday night. Wednesday is the baseball show with myself, Scott, and Jonathan, and then Saturday, one-on-one with AP. We're gonna have a special NFL draft show. Where Scott and I do an official mock draft. Scott Coe, the Hall of Famer. We might have Sam with us, who knows? But maybe get a couple more people just in case. But for now, it looks like it's just going to be me and Scott doing a mock draft on Saturday. And then next Sunday is the NFC East Roundtable mock draft. We're going to go through the entire first round. Each of us is going to make eight picks. Including the picks for our respective teams. So that should be fun. I'm excited for that one as well. And a man who's going to be doing his very first mock draft is going to be my guest tonight as well. Unfortunately, we won't have Whit. Whit had his birthday as well. So Whit couldn't be on. But we do have the other half of the Rec Room Sports duo with us tonight. My guy, my main man, it's Jay on the MIC. Jay, what's good, man?
So much, Alan, man. Glad to finally make it, man, on the one-on-one.
I mean, it was going to be a one-on-two, but it's a true one-on-one tonight. So, like I said before, we'll probably have Wood on at some point. I know he's been busy with family stuff. He just had another newborn, so congratulations to him. By the way, he's been killing it lately, so I got to give my shout-outs to Whit for sure.
Yeah, man. As someone who's always killing people off on the internet and on podcasts, happy birthday, Whit. Just missed OJ too soon. But yeah, he almost killed off OJ too. Wow. But man, rest in peace, OJ the Great. But the juice. But yeah.
Yeah, or at least the player, OJ. At least the player, OJ.
Yeah. And happy birthday, Whit. Happy belated. His birthday was yesterday. Mine was actually last week, Sunday, on the 7th. And, so yeah, we've always had that thing going on. The Aries gang, Whit and I.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine's in like 3 weeks. It's on the 4th of May, so I've still got a few weeks to go. So that's interesting that we're all just kind of gathered up there. So speaking of Whit, speaking of you, how did y'all two meet, and how did the Rec Room come to be?
Actually, Whit and I are kind of like, in a way, close friend of mine, someone I grew up with. Him and Whit are actually cousins. So Whit was the little kid, we're not too far off in age. I'm probably like 7 years older than him. So he was just always kind of like hanging around. He was a fresh South Carolinian. Of course, I've been here longer than he has, but he was just coming down. His dad was a big Knicks fan. They just moved down from New York, and just as the years went by, he was always around. As I was always with my friend, he was always around, and just somebody I pretty much linked up with through time, and once next thing I know, the sports conversations came up, and I had some visions about things that I wanted to do with I was just kicking it on Instagram, and I'll pretty much post where I'm going, and people used to always say, "Darn, man, I saw you was at the game," and we just ended up getting in a conversation, and Witt, who's actually a mass comm, a broadcast major of South Carolina State University. You know, it just kind of came together where we sort of started just shooting it around and just say, hey, like let's make something out of like a sports podcast or something regarding some type of sports media, and that's how we just ended up doing the podcast.
That bond you guys have is just unbreakable at times. I know you guys you brought on a couple others with you as well. You guys are like family, and I love seeing that with you guys. And that's really what makes these things work. Is you guys are people are treated like family. Y'all bounce different ideas off of each other. And it's kind of like what Dan kind of established here on the Let's Talk Sports Network. And when he reached out to you guys to join, what was that like?
It's weird because, with to piggyback off that as well, what we were first talking about, I noticed that, I saw some things in Witt, and I was like, man, you're in broadcast mass comm, man, like you should like get out there and like get on Twitter and talk to people, journalists, and since you like sports. And I started to I guess try to kind of like take some type of lead, and show them like, hey, this is something that we could be doing. And I got an inbox one day, and this is sort of similar to I saw Bodkins talk about it. And when you get those emails of like, I own like oil mine or gold mine and so, and I'm about to, send you a check, and all you got to do is cash it, and or I'm like, it's some weird email. It was sort of like that, and I just wondered, like, how's this guy? How did he know that I wanted to kind of network with people about sports? Like, I just set up a Twitter account maybe a couple weeks, maybe, before I got this message. So it was weird, and it was Dan. And he was like, hey, my friend, and you want to talk sports with me. And I was like, okay, sure. And here we are.
One thing leads to another, and here we go.
here we are. It was like, I passed it on to Witt and other guys who pretty much were affiliated with Rec Room Sports, and they were like, you for real? I was like, yeah, this guy just reached out. He was like, hey, I want to talk sports, and I want to, I do a podcast, and it's on YouTube. And I'm like, damn, that's sort of like what we just started doing, and what I want to kind of expand to. We weren't, it was just, he was like, hey, and then, you want to do an interview? And I was like, sure, why not? And, it's on Let's Talk Sports. And it was, my first interview with Dan, and it just, again, it just started from there. And I met you, and I met everybody else. And it's been the biggest of blessings. And it's just, it's like a dream in a way, and it just hasn't ended yet, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, which is so cool. But that is just it. You don't picture like, hey, I want to do this, and you set up an account to do something, and then next thing you know, like somebody's like, hey, you want to do this? It's like, couldn't be. It's not. It can't be that easy, and here we are.
Yeah. I mean, that's how Dan got with everybody, pretty much. I mean, you mentioned that's how Nick kind of found him, and me, I found Dan through Keith Engel, who's on the TGI Sports Network. He started posting his videos and stuff on a group, Facebook group that I was an admin for, and I could have took to that a little bit, started watching some of his. I want to say about half a year later, Keith brought me on one of his shows. We did a show together, and Dan noticed that, and he noticed it in the comments and stuff like that, and you just reached out and was like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, kinda, and you get the nerves. It's like, do I really want to do this? Is this something that I want to maybe get into. And it's like, I've always, since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be like a broadcaster or something like that, something to involve with sports. This is what I wanted to do. And my mom always told me, he's like, you'd make a great broadcaster one day because you always practice it and you always do it well. And I'm like, you know what, we might as well give it a shot. And while the first, few months I was in the network, I was only filming from my phone because I didn't have a laptop at the time, doing maybe like 10-minute shows, something like that. It got me more, involved and more confident in wanting to do this full, not necessarily full time, but, just get more involved in this, and then Dan so graciously gifted me the laptop. So now I have an actual setup. So, that's just what the way Dan was, though. He saw potential in people. He saw, people. He just wanted to bring people together to talk sports. This is really the gist of it. He wanted to create something where normal fans like us can come together from all walks of life, from all parts of the country, from across the world. As we, I mentioned on my last show, we have such a big UK fan base. And just talk sports, just be fans and talk sports with each other. And he's created such a great community with us. So
yes, indeed.
Rest in peace for sure to the man himself, Mr. Dan Harris. We miss you every single day for sure.
Yes.
Well, let's get in. We'll get the negatives out of the way, Jay. I don't want to hurt you too much because I know it's been rough for you as a sports fan lately. But we'll get the negative out of the way, and that's. What is your love-hate relationship like with Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers right now?
Really, I thought we were good. I was thinking, like, what could be that bad? I was like, I always talk, but I have a bad life with sports. But I was thinking he was going to a team, but.
Well, I mean, Portland.
Right
Let's just Portland in general. I know you're a big Trailblazers fan. I know they're a very young team. They're still trying to go off the effects of them trading Dame to Milwaukee, which the Bucks don't look that good, honestly. If I'm being truly honest, they might. Scott and I talked about it, on the newsletter earlier tonight. They might be a first round exit to Indiana, in my opinion, but. Could you see, I know it might be a few years away, but what are you hoping to see from Portland over the next, few months, maybe once draft time comes up?
Not only a contender or somebody that could at least be good for even, an A spot in the playoffs. It's sort of that thing, where, when we're talking about the Portland Trailblazers, I actually come from, I guess I watched in an era where you had to stay up pretty late, and you still do, but for the most part, unless they're playing on the East Coast, you had to stay up pretty late to catch them. And, they weren't quite on national TV, unless it was Sunday. If you didn't see them on Sunday, you pretty much didn't catch them. So, back in those days, we had some great players, but not quite the most notable players, the most marketable players, other than Clyde Drexler, and further than that, Bill Walton. We've always had a long, a tall, big, a big team, a big talented team, a deep team. That's always been our thing. We always had a deep team, even in the late 90s, when we, ended up having like probably the most expensive bench ever in NBA history. It was everybody actually started on a NBA team at one time in their career. So, I at least want to get back to that, having a team, a talented team where, from 1 through 15, we have talent across the board.
Mm-hmm. Anybody you got your eye on in this upcoming draft that you think, maybe this could help right now?
I haven't quite looked at Aiton's contract. I keep looking at it because we're getting closer to the draft, and of course, we're going to be in the lottery in some shape, form, or fashion. I don't know if we gave up a pick, but uh, you know, with it's I'm kind of like it depends on what Aiton does. Uh, I just I would imagine we're probably going overseas for our talent. Being the fact that we just drafted our point guard of the future last season and Scoot Henderson. I think aside from that, we have a lot of young talent from Simons all the way down, and we have Jabari Walker and some young people that we can build on. Whether if they're a role player or a star that could carry a team. I just want to at least see. I want to see at least some type. I need some type of, I guess, a generational talent. I don't even care if we're talking about a role player because believe it or not, we actually have Draymond Green could be basically labeled as a generational talent as far as role players go. You know what I mean? So just someone that we could depend on going in, to build around. We got a lot. We got too much now. We have nothing but trade pieces on our team. Nothing but. So, going into this draft, I like to at least see someone who can help us win.
You hoping that maybe they do what Golden State has done and what Oklahoma City's currently doing, kind of build their team through the draft, get some of the, maybe not as many draft picks as you can, but use those picks to get, guys that, just bodies, just guys that could be supportive to this team and, add depth pieces. Maybe they turn out to be great, good players that can help this team win. And it's like, kind of like what we saw with Houston this year. Nobody really expected Houston to be a 500 basketball team at all. Like, I didn't expect it, and they just kind of shot out of nowhere. I think if you make those right calls, Portland can probably be in that mix. And remember, the Western Conference is getting a lot younger. LeBron's pretty much on the tail end of his career. Scott and I talked about it earlier. The Warriors are probably done after this year. They're probably going to be selling some of their pieces off. So you guys could take advantage of that and start climbing the ranks in the West once that starts happening.
Yes, that's true. And then like I said before, I feel like the Northwest Division has always been a solid division. Whether if we had someone who was pretty much lacking, in the standings, we always had a solid division. I mean, you can go back to when we had, when you had KD and Russ and Harden, and y'all were going to the playoffs and things like that. We had a solid team. Maybe when you're talking about probably the team that's probably haven't had the best luck in those years, probably Minnesota. They tried out some things that didn't work out. Outside of KG, once KG was gone, they ushered in the cat and everybody else, the young players that they received. They just hit the ground running. But the Northwest Division has always been a great division. It was always just. We always were consistent in the playoffs. We have like team to take a year off. The Jazz are pretty much not doing as good as well. We're probably the worst, but in the West, it's like you said, everybody's getting younger. But yeah, you can easily be that team. That it's a on a new start like the Kings have been. Which I don't think they're not looking too good to me. That they just beat us down, but today. But put them in the playoffs. We'll see. They're not as strong as they was last season. And, they're not as hot as they were. But it's definitely wide open.
What do you think of the playoff field this year? It's been set in stone as of today. Obviously, in the West, you got OKC 1, Denver 2, Minnesota 3. You talk about the Northwest Division being great. You got the top 3 teams from that division out there in the top. You've got, of course, the Clippers are there. The Mavericks are there, which the Mavericks could be a sneaky good team. The Suns barely avoid the play-in. and get that 6th spot. And then your playing game is New Orleans, the Lakers, of course. And then you mentioned the Kings earlier. The Kings are there, and then the Warriors there at the bottom. What do you think of the West side of the postseason?
And it never ceases to amaze me as far as the storylines that we have here. You know, when we're talking about the Kings and the Warriors with the Sabonis and Draymond Green situation. You know, you have Pelicans, an upstart team who everybody thought that as long as they were healthy, they can pretty much go contend. You know, and who do they start up against? The Lakers. You know what I mean? So the storylines are awesome. Just like you said, the top 3 coming out of the Northwest Division, you know, with your Thunder, you know, with the number 1 seed in the West, you know, which is awesome. And you know, here we are in 2024. We have, you know, some teams who used to be considered, you know, in the bottom half of the Western Division in the early 2000s or late 90s, you know, now actually on the top half. You know, you got the Mavericks and the Clippers. I think every matchup, even with the Timberwolves and the Suns, like we're talking about a first round, out of the play-ins. You know, your prospective first round matchups are awesome. They're awesome already. When you from the play-in, which the play-in it seems like it's getting stronger and stronger every year. Now you actually have a name for it, which is now the SoFi play-in. You know, so that's shows you how much the NBA is regarding and they want to get this buzz around the play-in. But you know, the worst matchup out of all the play-ins is also exciting, which is the Bulls and the Hawks. You know, Bulls, you know, they have their things, you know, but they're not quite a notable team as far as who they have other than DeRozan and you know, if you're not a Tar Heel fan, you won't know much about Kobe White. But you know, going against the Hawks who just got Trae Young back. So that's a pretty interesting matchup as well. But yeah, I mean, so in the West, man, it's gonna be big. It's very entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you look at it from top to bottom. There's only like 12 games separated the top seed, and then you know all the way down to the end of the play-in. Only 12 games separated. It's going to be a wild ride in the Western Conference. So hopefully, you know, you mentioned Oklahoma City being at the top. They haven't been the number 1 overall seed since 2013, and they're also the youngest team to ever win 57 games. So. That's incredible of what they're doing right now. Now on the East side, it's pretty much it looks like it's just Boston and everybody else at this point. You know, the Celtics they're at number 1. They're 14 games ahead of the number 2 team, which surprisingly enough, I can't believe I'm saying it. It's the New York Knicks because you know the Bucks just can't win anything now with Doc at the helm. You know the Bucks at 3. You know, the Magic there at 5, which is kind of a surprise. I know you and Whit talk about the Orlando Magic a lot. They got a good first-round matchup against Bobby G's Cavaliers in round 1. You know, the Pacers, I kind of mentioned it earlier. I think the Pacers at 6, they can upset the Bucks at 3 there. And then, of course, you got your playing teams. You mentioned Chicago and Atlanta there at the bottom. But then you got Philadelphia and Miami, the 7 and 8 teams. Scott already told me the team that the Boston Celtics do not want to see round 1 is the Miami Heat because of what Jimmy Butler is and what he can be in the postseason. Do you agree with that sentiment? And is this Boston's Eastern Conference to lose?
I agree with that almost on both sides. I just feel like either team out of that play-in is possibly a bad matchup for the Celtics, depending on how they're playing. Like which Celtics team? Yes, they did earn. They're up there, you know. Like you said, 14 games up. But you still, when we're talking about playoffs, which is a different monster, which Boston Celtics team are we gonna get? And you know, I really feel like either one of those teams can be a threat to the Celtics, the Sixers, or the Heat. But yes, I agree. I think the Heat. You know, you got to think that they can't keep saying like every playoffs, "Hey, it's the Jimmy Show, let's go." You know, you can't keep doing that because at some point in time we're gonna say, "Oh, what happened? Where's Jimmy?" And you know, he's not gonna be there. So you know, you hope for the best, but definitely it's a serious matchup for the Celtics to start out. Either way,
Mhm. Yeah. So I'll ask you this: who do you think's going to the finals?
at this point, I'm just gonna go with, and I know I'm gonna be wrong. You know, I'm just gonna go with the Nuggets and the Celtics in the finals. The
Mm.
Nuggets and the Celtics. I really see any team out of the West in a 7 game series, depending on your matchups, depending on injury. You know, when we in the East, we're talking about the Bucks. Like, you know, with everything that they did in the offseason, nobody wants to be talked about in that light the way they're talking about the Bucks right now. So, you know, it's anybody's right now. This is the parity that the league wants to see. This is the parity. Who knows about scripts? Who knows about the referees? Which definitely come into are a big part in this. How the game is going to be called. What refs do we have officiating these games? There's a lot of factors outside of what we're looking at on paper, other than the matchups. I really think that out of the West, it could be anybody, and out of the East, we're talking about just a healthy run from Embiid away from the Celtics, possibly not even being in the finals and possibly being the 76ers.
Mhm.
So, you know, I'm gonna go with the Nuggets and the Celtics right now.
I
right,
will say
right
though,
now.
if there's one team that has had Denver's number this year, it has been Oklahoma City. And if they have to go to Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals, that's going to be a tough matchup for the Nuggets. I will say that for sure. I am hoping that the Lakers win their first playing game, because that's the team I don't want to be the 8th seed, because the Lakers have our number. So I'm hoping that the Lakers beat the Pelicans. That way they can get squashed by the Nuggets and get knocked out. And then, you know, the West is wide open. I agree with you on that. The West is very much wide open. I would like to see our young team do it. I don't think we will. Until Denver gets knocked down, I don't see them, getting beat in the Western Conference Finals. But I'd love to see our young team in Oklahoma City do it. That would be great for the team. It would be great for the city going forward. I mean, it'd be awesome to watch. So let's get into the NFL. I know we're doing our mock draft next week, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show. Big time Commanders fan. I know you've been going through a lot. You got the new ownership now. You got a new head coach now. You got some new talent coming in. So which quarterback are you looking at there at number 2? Because we know it's a quarterback. We know it's a quarterback. It's
Yeah.
got to be. It's got to be. It seems like.
I'm gonna go against probably any Commanders fan, and I did not want to end up getting a quarterback. Honestly, I always thought that Sam Howell is just enough, and then we can actually go for Marvin Harrison Jr. and work it out from there. Um, as much as a generational talent that he was or is, I, you know, he, I just thought that I would rather have the person that I know is going to be a great player, other than a lot of maybes or good potential. Um, that's kind of where I was at. But if I'm in this situation that we're in realistically, I'm gonna have to say, I'll take, I'm just gonna go with the consensus of basically everybody saying Jaden Daniels. And um I dare not say McCarthy or Penix or May. I would just feel like an idiot if my team just got rid of somebody that plays just like him just to get him. You know what I mean? So
And see,
You
that's
know,
crazy because a lot of people think we're getting Michael Penix is because he's basically a left-handed Dak Prescott. So,
hmm, we'll see where we're going, but I want to go with Jaden Daniels. Hopefully that we get that lightning, and that about we get what I would say the positives out of him. I've seen a lot of things, just like with any young quarterback. Going into the NFL, I've seen some things that kind of worry me. Just being the fact that it's eerie to me with a number 2 pick. Here we are again with the number 2 pick and getting a quarterback. Not quite the last time, but yeah, recently we got somebody back in 2010 that just didn't know how to slide, didn't know how to get down correctly, and then it eventually costed him. How awkward he landed on the ground, but here we are with a quarterback that I has a lot of talent. Just got to keep him upright. That's if anything above else, like, hey, with anything else, we got to keep him upright. We got to keep him healthy. We rank last. I think our training, basically our trainer, our training
facilities,
team,
all that good
basically,
stuff.
we were given an F. We were given an F. Our training
I was
staff
I was
given an
surprised
F.
Kansas City got a lower grade, to be honest, than you guys did.
Yeah, but we are terrible, and I just want to be able to keep this, whoever this person is. I want, we have to keep them healthy, one way or the other.
If I'm being a realistic fan, I think it should be Jalen Daniels. I kind of agree with you there because I think he's going to give you that spark. I can't say Caleb Williams. I think Scott and I both agreed earlier. I think Caleb's going to be a bust, especially in Chicago. I don't see Caleb Williams having any success in Chicago. And I mean, I've seen it firsthand up close because he was here in Norman for a little bit. When he was good, he was great. A lot of people talk about that Texas game the whole time. We're down 28-7. He leads us back into that game and wins it. But then there's also the Kansas game where they keep our offense away from the ball, and then Caleb has to do miracles and magic just to get first downs, let alone score. So, and then you look at his USC career, and it's like, when you're going up against teams like Utah who can play defense, or Oregon who can play defense, and you struggle with that kind of exposes you a little bit. So I'm not sold on Caleb Williams, but I think Jalen Daniels is actually going to be the best quarterback in this class. And if he goes I will be nervous if he goes to Washington. If he goes to Washington, I will be nervous as a Cowboys fan because that means they're making the right decision, in my opinion, and they're going to be on the upward trajectory, I think. So,
right.
If you get Drake May, I'm going to laugh my ass off. Don't get me wrong, but if it is Jalen Daniels, I will be very nervous. I will be very nervous if it is Jalen Daniels that's pick number 2.
I'm kind of hoping that we, I'm hearing the rumblings of Kyler Murray, possibly getting traded to Washington, and I'm thinking about that as a possibility, and thinking like maybe we would be better off in that situation with him in the Kingsbury offense together again. I didn't think this is realistic, even though I'm hearing it a lot now. Them possibly trading for Kyler Murray. I just, you would think that they didn't have the best working relationship as it kind of dwindled down in Arizona. So, who knows? But it's Jaden Daniels with, a new offense, new defense, and a new all the way around. Dan Quinn with his basically hit and run style of defense. Let's go. Buckle up. Buckle up. Let's see how pretty much Dan Quinn, with him getting a rookie quarterback. When he started out with a veteran quarterback in Matt Ryan. Now he has sort of like a more exciting, more athletic quarterback. So we'll see what's going on with Dan Quinn. We'll see if he finally has found his home.
Not
In
only
his
that, he had a good offensive play caller in Kyle Shanahan too. So having a Cliff Kingsbury helps with that.
yes. So he's done well in the past. With with that going on. With that type of chemistry, with that type of mixture.
Yeah. And it seems like, Daniels is kind of the guy that kind of fits in that Kingsbury offense anyway. So that would probably be the best choice, because I don't think you can get a pocket passer to do anything in a Kingsbury offense, if I'm being honest. But, well, we'll just wait and see. I'm excited to see. And again, like I said, check out our draft show, because Jay's going to be making a pick for his Commanders next Sunday. So, along with many others as well. So we got a lot of homework to do. Let's just say that.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So where do we go from here? Let's talk some baseball. I don't think we've ever talked baseball before. If not, it's been very scarce.
Right.
You're Atlanta Braves. You're the Braves fan. This team, by far, is the best team in baseball. They're the most talented team in baseball. The big disappointing part of it, and I know Jonathan says the same thing on our baseball show, is that they can't get past Philadelphia in the playoffs. This team should be a World Series team. For lack of a better term, this should be a World Series team. They're built like that. They have the arms. I know Spencer Strider's out, and that's a huge blow for them. But they got some other talent. Let's see what can't even remember the guy they got from the Red Sox. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now.
Talking about Chris Sale?
Yeah, Chris Sale. You got Chris Sale there now as a veteran guy who has leadership experience. You still got Max Fried there. Still have probably the best offense in baseball, led by Ronald Acuna. What are your thoughts on this Braves team? And if it's not a World Series, is it a disappointment?
I think we're going to be disappointed if we don't go head first, basically, into getting some pitching, some big time pitching. If we don't do that, this was before and after the Spencer Strider injury. By the pundits, basically, people around Atlanta who cover the Atlanta Braves a lot. It was always agreed upon, like, we need to go into this season trying to get some better pitching. Chris Sale isn't enough. It's not. Had a good outing, from what I heard. Had a pretty good outing recently. I believe that was his first opener. It's basically his home debut with the Braves. So we still needed big time pitching going into this season. And without Spencer Strider, who led, the league in wins, or the NL at least, he's gone just like that. And depending on Max Fried and possibly Ian Jackson, coming back, it's just not good enough. Where we're at across the board, hitting wise, hopefully we stay healthy, on that front. But hitting well, Ozuna, who it's a luxury to us, it's like sort of like an embarrassment of riches when it comes to like hitters. We keep getting. I keep telling people like Travis d'Arnaud with what we have coming back every year, we can pretty much play small ball. We have, down the line, 1 through 9, we can hit.
Mhm.
I just it's about pitching. It's about pitching. We're not gonna, whether it's the Phillies or say for instance, if we don't have like the best record and we're pretty much going against we're looking at having to get a wild card, possibly. We're not well in that either. we always lose out when it comes to that as well. Even when we have a pretty good team, hitting wise, pitching is not where it used to be with us, and that's a concern of mine. With pitching, that's pretty much it.
Yep. Not to mention, you guys made some pretty solid trades the last few years. I mean, getting the two best players the A's have had the last few years and taking them away, Sean Murphy and Matt Olson.
Right.
Great additions to that lineup as if they needed another power bat. Austin Riley's kind of come into his own. You get Jared Kelnick from the Mariners, who has been pretty good.
Yes.
You mentioned Ozuna, who's been kind of a luxury. Michael Harris, who's out there now in center field, and you got some young guys coming up that are really good. You mentioned the pitchers. Smith Shawver's not too bad. He's had some struggles here and there, but if he gets it going, he could be good. And this is why the Braves have such good. This is why they have such a good, rich history in their franchises, because they run it right. They run the owners, the organization, they run everything right. The facilities are great. It's considered one of the best organizations in baseball. The new stadium that you guys recently got a few years ago, it's phenomenal from what other fans have told me. Jonathan Stevens, we literally joke about this. It's like a 30-minute segment where he talks nothing but Atlanta Braves. So he's definitely shows his fandom, but at the same time, everything he says is true. The Braves have great young talent. They have one of the best farm systems in Major League Baseball. That's why they're going to be on top for a long time. But it's like you said, you got to get the pitching going. I know some people aren't really that concerned because they have a great offense. But then again, look at us from last year. Look at the Rangers. Our pitching wasn't that great. Starting pitching wise, it was okay. It got better as the year went on. Bullpen was terrible. It was awful. This one thing the Braves have over us is they have a great bullpen. We ended up winning a World Series. So
you added that one name, that kind of got you over the hump pitching wise, though.
Mm-hmm. Jordan Montgomery.
So it just, I don't know. It's kind of scary, when we're looking at these Braves teams that now we have like the murderer's row of hitting. Now we don't have. We have pitching. Now, I'm not saying we don't have pitching. It's just not the consistency.
It's not the guys that you were expecting to be there. Obviously, the pitching injuries have been one thing. So it's been hard to deal with for a lot of teams this year. I think there's only like 5 teams. I saw a stat. There's only like 5 teams that have a team ERA under 3 right now. But then again, it's April. We still got a long way to go as far as baseball is concerned.
Right.
So let's talk some NCAA. Let's talk some college basketball real quick. Obviously, North Carolina, you're a big UNC fan. What do you make of NC State's run in the tournament on the men's side?
I think that's just a testament to the ACC and how deep we are in talent, especially with the transfer portal now. I think not only NC State's but Clemson's run was pretty much a little unexpected. But North Carolina State, I will say, moving on, like who knows? Who knows what we're going to see when we're talking about the transfer portal. We might be talking about possibly a whole nother team. The makeup of that team is going to be totally different. But I think that's just a testament to the ACC and how deep of a conference, talent-wise, that we are. We have so much talent. Some teams probably had an off year, didn't really have the best year out of Miami this year. They pretty much was been on like up and coming and pretty much consistent, going deep into the tournament these days. Not really known for their basketball historically. So the ACC, I think we're always going to have a team. I think every season that puts it together and goes deep into the and how did they make it? They made it by going on a run. They beat us. They beat Duke. It just they went on a run where they kind of used us to get in to the tournament, and then still carried on, took it as far as possible. So I think the ACC will always have a team that's capable of being like that.
Mhm. Speaking of, well, I was going to say ACC, but it's actually SEC. We'll go to South Carolina on the women's side. That team did not lose all season long. Uh, Donna Staley's done a great job with that team. Uh, great championship matchup against Iowa there at the end with Caitlin Clark. Of course, Caitlin Clark's the next big thing in women's professional sports. She's headed off to the WNBA. But the question, I know you guys have gotten this a lot, is when do you think Donna Staley makes that jump from South Carolina to the WNBA?
Honestly, I think the WNBA is not really a home for Dawn Staley. I think Dawn Staley has found her home in South Carolina. Um, when you look at the greats like Pat Summitt and Gina Auriemma, like when you can't, with the WNBA, I don't think the WNBA is that marketable right now, or not at that level right now where that's like the big leagues. Honestly, right now, women's college basketball, I think the big leagues is finding your home in college basketball and winning some championships. You know what I mean? And putting those rings on your finger and getting all of those great players into the WNBA. I think, between women's basketball and men's basketball, I think I always looked at as college coaches as more of a luxurious, say more of a bigger position as the NBA. The NBA, you talking about, or WNBA, you talking about grown men and women. College basketball, you're actually still raising children. You're still raising kids. You're still, sending them to the next level, getting them prepared for grown up status, whether that's in the professional sports or in life. So I think Dawn Staley staying at South Carolina is the move. To surpass what like I said, the Summits and the Auriemmas and we just had Vanderveer pretty much call it quits, or call it a career. You know what I mean? So I just think that the college is where it's at. College is where it's at. I think she should stay. And I guess she just really caught her stride. You know what I mean? Like she just caught her stride and like look what she's doing. And I think it should just be here. I think it should always be here, South Carolina.
Do you think that with the players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese going to the WNBA, that maybe the WNBA starts to gain a little bit more momentum going into the next few years? Because it seems like people are a little bit, I mean, obviously with Vegas and their success the last couple of years, people are starting to get a little bit more excited over it. But with superstars like these two now going in, could it generate a little bit more buzz for the WNBA going forward?
Of course. But here's the deal. It's going to take more than just their talent to do it. You know what I mean? Like we already had Taurasi calling out Caitlin Clark. You know what I mean? And I even have you see random. I caught Cheryl Miller on social media was like, wait a minute, and she didn't say like, directly like, hey, don't get it twisted. Like she did this, but she was actually calling out like, remember when I won this? How did I do it? Remember I did this? Like, remember I was doing it with this and was this, and she was comparing, but she wasn't really putting Caitlin Clark out there, but saying like, hold up. Then Cynthia Cooper had her argument with, hold on, I did this. Remember I did the things that her accolades. So you're starting to see players that are still in the WNBA, as well as like older greats, calling out Caitlin Clark in like a competitive aspect. So I think it's going to take more than just the talent. I think it's going to take marketing, as well as these other players calling them out and stepping up to the challenge night after night. I looked at the TV schedule, and I was looking at when they're playing close by so I can go see, but I was also looking at the games that they're going against, the Aces and you know these teams that like, okay, you were the best out here, now like we're the best here, let's see how you do now. So, hopefully the competitiveness comes into play where, like I said, talent, I don't think is going to do it alone. It's going to take an all out effort when it comes to marketing and social media, and also the players actually being competitive and challenging one another. That'll make it must see TV for real.
Yeah, definitely. Once you get that competitive spirit going, it's gonna be great for the league going forward. What can we expect from the Rec Room going forward? You guys got any plans coming up as far as like maybe NFL draft stuff, or is there anything you got on the docket coming up for the Rec Room?
The thing is, we're always going to be doing the Rec Room. We're trying to always like expand and always network with the guys. Let's talk sports. But me personally, I would say Wit definitely, he's gonna always be involved with the Head Kicks and Haymakers, and the other shows that he does. Me, I always want to be a presence, but I try and I've been trying my hand recently and trying to look forward to actually helping the youth throughout a basically nonprofit, and sort of youth that actually cannot play sports, like they already know that it might not be in their future of playing sports, and like kids who actually might not quite have the confidence, as well as kids who might not have the family background that is conducive with playing sports. You have single mothers who can't get their kids to practice or can't afford equipment or whatever the case may be. So the last year I've kind of been, working hard at trying to get avenues where I can actually help out the community more. I already started kind of like peaking, kind of expressing my interest in helping kids with the sports media program that they have in my area with area high schools. Pretty much trying to like lend out, some type of help to help some talented kids any way that I can, with like building their brand, sports media, trying to, whether if they take that in sports, moving forward in their future, or if they actually want to like move on to something else. It's of like being a creative. But me myself in this Rec Room period, we're really trying to expand into like nonprofit, just community activism, and then also just trying to also have fun and visit sporting events, go to certain venues, pretty much check off a bucket list of places that we wanted to ever like see, when it comes to sports and sporting events. Like, some people have always dreamed about just going to a game. Me and Whit talk about this very often, where it's like, I want to go I've never been to a Yankees game, never, but to go to a Yankees game in Boston or a Yankees Boston game in Yankee Stadium. Like those are things that, we want to be able to do as well as check off bucket list events in sports that we would actually want to attend as well. And that's really where I started with, going on Instagram and just showing myself having fun at the game, and just kind of like looking behind the scenes and seeing how things are done. And, that was also always a fascination of mine. So, in the future, we're always going to be doing, the podcasting and trying to network with as many people who want to do this as well. But mainly, trying to like give back, what I'm saying, the kids who, like I said, who are playing sports and might need a little push, and kids who know that they probably can't play sports but want to be around sports. And we can show that mainly like, hey, you can might be able to be behind the camera, behind the scenes, and let them understand that you don't have to necessarily like always play to be the focal point. In sports, it's the people who bring it together, the people behind the camera, the boom guy, the guy that's wiring, the guy talking about sports, the guy marketing the sporting event is actually who actually makes it go. You know, that's a big part of things with us as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a guy who was raised by a single mother, that is awesome. Like, I wish I had something like that, growing up. But that any way we can help the young kids of this generation would be a great thing, a great step in the right direction, I should say. Um, and you guys do an awesome job with that, and you guys do an awesome job on your show as well. And I always love having you on our NFC show. And it's great. You kind of the mild mannerness of Jay kind of balances out the wild, off the wall antics of one Carlos Chavez. So it's great. It's great. It's great. So it's great. It's great that we get to do stuff like this. So I'm proud to be a part of it. Our last two questions before I let you go. What is your favorite sporting moment of all time that you either witnessed live or you knew exactly where you were when it happened?
Oh, wow. Man, with I guess the current events, man, I was just actually telling somebody. My mother and I, we just moved to South Carolina from New York, and I remember finally hooking up the TV, and because we were actually still waiting on our furniture to come on the moving truck, and we caught the NBA playoffs, and that was the first thing that we were able to catch. And something's wrong with the TV. Why are we seeing somebody driving down the interstate in a white Bronco? That was, I'm not gonna say my favorite, but it's funny that you say that because I was just telling somebody the other day, like that's my first memory of like coming down to South Carolina and watching sports. That was my first memory of watching sports, was watching OJ. But as far as a favorite thing that I actually saw live, oh man, where can I start? I'm not gonna think too hard on this one. I would say, man, it's funny that I could say it's so many, which is a blessing. But it would definitely be when the Braves won the pennant 2 seasons ago. Or was that last season? Was that last season? Because I actually was there both when they clinched. Actually both times. So basically that was my first time watching a save situation for the pennant, for the NL East. Um to see the whole events and actually watching it live, and it was a lot of long pitch counts. So basically, a lot of long at bats that led to the Braves winning the NL East. I would say that's one of my most exciting moments that I've ever seen live because it actually meant something. And I never go to like playoff atmosphere games. I just go to see certain players. But that was the first time I was around like a playoff atmosphere game where it meant something, and it was very, very dramatic.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing it was 2 years ago, the one where you passed the Mets, because the Mets for the longest time a couple of years ago were ahead in that division, and then the Braves took it over there at the very end and ended up clinching the division. So
that was it. It was 2 years ago. I actually have it on IG where I was pretty much drunk out of my mind, and watching it.
Gee, who would have guessed? Who would have guessed?
Yeah, and I'm yelling, and I'm like, Braves win, and I was just hooting and hollering, and there was a Braves fan like right in front of me, and I didn't know this was a Braves fan. He just happened to turn around and was like, dude. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And it just, started to offend him, but it was very fun. It was amazing. But yeah, that was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago, now that I see.
And of course, mine was last year. Specifically Game 1, the World Series against Arizona. We're down 5-3. Corey Seager hits the 2-run home run to tie the game. The minute that happens, I'm like, yeah, we're winning this World Series. And then, of course, Adolis hits the game winner in Game 1. And that was just like, yeah, I was super excited for that. And then the final out, it just felt surreal. Like,
I don't know.
I'm a Cowboys fan. I was too young to see the Cowboys win in the 90s. I was born in 93. I was too young to see the Sooners win their national championship in 2000. I guess you could say I'm kind of a secondary Cubs fan, so I was happy to see them win, but none of my teams actually had won a championship until last year's World Series. So
that's
to
amazing.
see that curse finally broken by a team that hadn't won anything in the 57 years that they've been in Texas, to get their first World Series title, it was a special moment. It was a special moment indeed.
I see exactly where you're coming from with that one. So yeah, that was a oof. There's a little weight off your shoulders as a fan, pretty much a Dallas fan, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
One kind of secondary one that I want to kind of mention real quick is back in I want to say 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I was working night shift, graveyard shift as I used to do. Jay's always telling me make sure to get sleep, all that good stuff, which is why I love the man. He's always making sure I'm taking care of myself, so I got to give him a quick shout out for that. Is the night we were playing. It was the Sugar Bowl, and I want to say it was either 2013 or 2014. It was us against Alabama. No one was giving us a chance because it's the mighty Alabama Crimson Tide. And remember, this is back when they had A.J. McCarron. They had Landon Collins still. They had Derrick Henry and T.J. Yeldon still. I think they still had Amari Cooper. So this was a stacked Alabama team against an Oklahoma team who had a rotating quarterback system all season long between Blake Bell, Trevor Knight, and Kendall Thompson. And they gave us no chance whatsoever. I remember being at work, just kind of doing my job, and was asking, what's going on with the game? How bad are we losing? And they're like, oh no, we're actually winning. We're up by 10. What? What do you mean we're up by 10? How the hell we're beating Alabama? Are you kidding me? Yeah, Trevor Knight had probably his greatest game of his entire football career against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And we end up beating them 45-35 in the Sugar Bowl. And the final play, of course, was McCarron fumbling it. And I want to say it was Geno Grissom who picked it up and dove into the end zone at the end of regulation to make it a 10-point win for Oklahoma. Sooner Magic is great, y'all. Sooner Magic is great.
I forgot all about that matchup. They upset them. Yeah, I forgot all about that matchup. Wow. So that is definitely a good way. You're at work and you're like, not even worth watching. I'm glad I'm going to work. I'd rather go to work and watch.
And then they end up beating them in the Sugar Bowl, and I'm like, what the hell? But then again, that's just what the OU team is. I mean, a couple of years ago, we mentioned it about Caleb Williams. We always talk about that Texas game. We're down 28-7. He leads us back into that game. We ended up winning it at the end. 2 of the last 3 years, 4 overtimes in the Red River game. And then, of course, the game where, you put up 48 points. Both teams put up 48 plus. And it's like, it's crazy. It's been crazy. And then we get blown out last year. And then this past year was kind of a revenge game. And it was a close game too. So OU Texas is always great. It's always a good memory.
Always.
Mm-hmm. Last question, Jay. What is your favorite TV show of all time?
Honestly, it started to become First 48. Man, but whew. I don't watch much TV, and that's sad because, you know, if you would have asked me this in my teenage years, in my 20s, I would have told you SportsCenter with no hesitation. No hesitation at all. But now that we have our Marvel series, even us doesn't really, you know, it's not. I'm gonna say SportsCenter, man. SportsCenter is my favorite TV show. SportsCenter is even though I watch so many different sports shows on so many different networks and I listen to so many different radio stations, I could always count on waking up. Can you imagine a day where you turn on SportsCenter and it's not there? You know, it has to be something tragic going on in order for SportsCenter to not be on, or the Masters or something of that nature. You know what I mean? That's actually, you know, putting it to another channel like ESPN News or something like that. But it's SportsCenter. SportsCenter is my favorite show. I've laughed. I've cried watching SportsCenter. I've laughed watching SportsCenter. So I mean, SportsCenter, it's what gets us going as men. So, you know, regardless if you watch, you know, you're a Fox guy or you pretty much do the podcast thing now where you don't watch ESPN. Some people have an ESPN bias. Some of my favorite sports personalities been on SportsCenter in those days where like I was coming up in school, you know, middle school and high school, where I had the Kenny Maynes and the Rich Eisens and the Stuart Scotts, you know, and you know, every morning, you know, every day, Keith Olbermann, you know what I mean? It was back then, it was more of a personality to what they were doing, because those were, if you look at it, those are like the Beatles when you look at sports journalism. When you look at how it was covered, you look at these guys now, like those are like the Beatles. You know what I mean when it comes to that. So SportsCenter is always my favorite TV show. You know, will probably always be.
Well, you mentioned Marvel. I love the Daredevil series. It was one of my favorites, especially going up. But you know, being an old school anime fan, I got to go with Dragon Ball Z. Rest in peace to Akira Toriyama, who recently passed away a few weeks ago. But yeah, Dragon Ball Z was always one that I loved, and I grew up with SportsCenter too in the early 2000s as well. So Stuart Scott was great. I loved him. You know, I heard that they might be doing a 30 for 30 on him pretty soon, maybe potentially.
Yes, I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, if they do that, I'm definitely going to tune in for that because that's going to be awesome. You know, Stuart Scott was one of the best, so I can't deny that.
It was nothing like waking up in the morning trying to get ready for school.
Or Chris Berman doing football highlights. That's always great.
There you go. You know, and you know, I just remember like when I talked about those guys like the Stuart Scotts and the Rich Eisens, like those dudes used to, you know, especially with baseball highlights. You know what I mean? Like when somebody hits a home run and, you know, they used to yell out like Yahtzee
Man. That just reminds me of Chris Berman commentating Josh Hamilton's 2008 home run derby performance. This phenomenal performance by Josh Hamilton. That was one of the best things I ever saw.
Yeah, that he definitely. And I remember, you know, Chris Berman went crazy in that, and Josh Hamilton definitely had a good run, you know, in those days.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jay, where could the people find you at? What you guys got coming up?
Well, what we have today's Sunday. We actually do have a rec room coming up on Tuesday. Still the off season. we're kind of working out some things, and as you see, we started out one time in our little friendly confines of the studio, and then we kind of networked out and got with other people and stuff, and we say, man, we're gonna have to like do this on our own time at home, instead of like meeting up in the studio every day. So now that everybody's out doing their own thing and we're at home doing our shows and stuff like that, we're having like an off season, so to say. So we're still doing a rec room that's going to be going into the off season and going into basically the NFL draft. And we're going to be starting up in June with full shows. We'll pretty much get into sports in general, but we got one coming up this Tuesday. We're also doing I'm going to be doing the NFC East show with you, and then also other than that, I'm going to be in the hoop with a host of guys, including you, coming this Friday. So, with Rec Room, even though we kind of got to get our breaks in, because I sort of like to travel, and then I took a year break because these season tickets, I kind of had to. I found myself having to make life decisions. Like, dude, you can't go to all these games anymore. Like, this is getting a bit expensive. So had to take some time off and sort of like do this right here, the podcast thing, and then after June, I'm gonna go back into like going to sporting events, going to baseball games, starting off, and then still doing the podcast thing. But like I said, you're gonna catch us in the Rec Room starting in June a little more consistently every Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. Other than that, I'm with you, and we'll see what's to come.
Mm-hmm. Guys, definitely go check them out. Go check out their YouTube channel as well, Rec Room Sports. At Rec Room Sports on all platforms. Rec Room Sporty is, I believe, Jay's personal Twitter. If you want to go follow him, he's such a good guy, man. Definitely go check him out. If you're listening to this on Spotify, definitely go check him out as well. Check out our YouTube page. Jay, any last comments before we end off here tonight?
Man, thank you for having me again, Alan. Hopefully it's gonna be like the duo, the dynamic duo the next time. Whit and I. Happy birthday, Whit. Still enjoying your birthday. I know you're a busy man, you know what I'm saying, but I definitely appreciate you, man. Love you. I say love you, cuz, like, that's just how it is. He's like a little cousin to me. So, again, man, appreciate you having me, Alan. Shout out to everybody. Happy birthday, Sam, Mr. First Down, my bearded brother. Had to definitely put that out there. Beards and arms, brothers and beards here. So, happy birthday. Shout out to everybody in the LTS, man. If you don't know me, get to know me. I'll talk anything with you, But again, Alan, love you, man. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, definitely. Also, again, happy birthday to both Whit and Mr. First Down as well. Both celebrating their birthdays this weekend. And Jay, of course, always love having you on. Always love talking with you. You're like my big brother, man. You take care of me, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you so much for that. Can't wait to see you do your first mock draft next Sunday. Even though you're only going to be making 8 picks, it's still going to be a good mock draft. I have a feeling. Hopefully, Carlos doesn't go off on speaking tangents the whole time. Otherwise, we'll never get it done. But then again,
you said it, not me.
The beauty of the show is you got to love Carlos, though. You got to love him, man. But yeah, hope you guys had a great rest of your night. Hope you guys have a great week. Until next week, love y'all. Stay safe. Have a great week. Take care.
Thanks so much for joining us, and until next time, let's talk sport, friends. Thanks for watching.